Are you looking for a small travel camera? Well, good news, because DJI has come swinging into the realm of small travel cameras and in the last few months have released some real bangers. I know what the kids say. Both the Osmo Pocket and the Osmo Action are fantastic little cameras that can get you some great looking images. But if you can only get one, which one should you get? Let's find out. What's up everyone, I'm the Everyday Dad, and if I can figure it out, you can figure it out. Well, we're coming up on the end of the 2 weeks of action, and today we're gonna compare the Osmo Action against the Osmo Pocket as more traditional cameras, because if you are considering these two specific cameras, you probably aren't gonna be rocketing down any sweet black diamond trails. I mean, no offense. That's not what the Osmo Pocket's for. So we'll follow that train of logic to its conclusion and use my more traditional camera categories instead of the pillars! Okay, no echoes today, just the pillars of action. We only do that for action camera videos. First up, video quality. Both of these cameras can record in 4K 60 frames per second, and they can both stabilize that in different ways. Before we talk about the stabilization, however, I do want to mention that these two cameras use a very similar, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised to find out that it's identical, camera infrastructure under the hood. Both use a 1/2.3 inch CMOS sensor, both record 4K 60 frames per second in traditional color and Cine-like D if you want a flatter image, and they're just, I mean, they both look very alike. Where we get into some differences, however, is the Osmo Pocket has an 80-degree field of view with an f2.0 aperture. 80 degrees is roughly 26 millimeters in full frame camera equivalency. And the Osmo Action has a 145-degree field of view with an f2.8 aperture, which is a lot wider than that in full frame camera equivalency. The Osmo Action also has better slow motion recording capability and can record in 1080p and up to 240 frames per second, while the Osmo Pocket is stuck at 120 frames per second. There are some other slight video differences, like the Osmo Action can record in 4:3, but that's not as exciting or as striking, just wanted to mention it. However, the real big image quality differences between the two cameras, and in my opinion, is a purchasing decision making. That makes sense. With its wider field of view and slower aperture, the Osmo Action effectively achieves infinity focus. Everything in the frame is in focus, where the Pocket has a depth of field. So some of the frame is in focus and some is out of focus. Now for big cameras like these, that's cool and important. But when the shallower the depth of field works, yeah, it looks pretty good. But the Pocket has a pretty fiddly contrast-based autofocus system combined with some physical body construction problems we'll talk about later, and that just makes this worse than it should probably be. Because sometimes your footage just won't be in focus and you won't know that it's not in focus. I mean, it's gotten way better since its initial release, but if the name of the game is quick, usable footage, the Osmo Pocket slows the process way down. But on the Osmo Action, everything is in focus, and I think that's what we actually want and need out of a small camera like this. If I want to get background separation, I'll use a full frame camera, I'll use my APS-C camera, or heck, I'll even use my small point and shoot camera, because the bigger sensored cameras are actually equipped to handle that difference in the depth of field. But these small ones don't have the processing power under the hood. Another huge video difference in the two cameras is how they achieve their stabilization, because great news, if you didn't actually know it, they both have really awesome image stabilization. Hooray! If you hadn't noticed, the Pocket camera is built on top of a mechanical gimbal. Look at that. That is cool. And tangentially, not only does this stabilize the camera, but gives you the ability to get really nice pans and tilts using the gimbal instead of having to physically move the camera. Like a caveman, who moves cameras anymore? The Action has DJI's rock-steady electronic image stabilization, which crops in on the image and uses algorithms to make a lot of calculations on how you are using and moving the camera to achieve its remarkable system, which is pretty good too. This is a pretty steep crop though, so you can expect to lose about 10 to 20% of the outside of your footage to achieve this, but even with that big crop, the field of view on the Action is still much bigger than on the Pocket. And this is where I think the Osmo Action wins when it comes to video. Something I've been complaining about since I first got my hands on the Osmo Pocket was if you are trying to record yourself, which considering it a selfie vlogging camera, that's kind of what you're gonna be doing with, it has a pretty darn tight crop, and that doesn't give itself easily to filming yourself if that's what you're trying to accomplish. The much wider field of view on the Action, combined with everything always being in focus, it's a important for a reason. That makes this a much more useful image option in my opinion. Now, image quality is only half of the video quality battle. With audio, I mean, it's the less attractive, but far more important sibling. I mean, it's not as cool, but it's the coolest to me. And they both sound very similar to me, where there could be a big difference if you are trying to achieve a similar field of view. You'll need to hold the Osmo Pocket farther away, thus limiting the ability of the internal microphone to pick up your speech or pick up what you're trying to get, whereas you don't have that problem on the Action. They do have audio adapters that you can get. This one you can buy now, this one you can't, but these kind of cameras don't really lend themselves well to internally recording audio. However, don't take my word for it. Let's hop outside real quick for a video slash vlogging test and put this all to the test. Welcome to the vlogging test of the DJI Osmo Pocket and the DJI Osmo Action. So we currently have both cameras set up into straight up auto mode, everything, 4K 24 frames per second. I am trying to make the field of view as even as possible. As you can see, I have the Osmo Pocket set up on a tripod, which I'm holding out a little bit farther just to make the video a little more palatable, so you can kind of make sure that I don't have to make everything super big. But yeah, this is the vlogging test of the two cameras. It's going to come down to, do you like just having a camera that stays steady with really good stabilization? Do you want a camera that doesn't move around a lot? Like, look, the face tracking is cool and all, but you may not be going for that look on the Osmo Pocket. On the Osmo Action, it doesn't go anywhere. It's just a stable camera that, see, like, look at the Osmo Pocket over there freaking out a little bit. So if you want a camera that has really good stabilization and you don't need to worry about whether it's actually going to be tracking your face or not, go with the Osmo Action. If you do need those gimbals and you really need that mechanical stabilization, well, yeah, then you have to go with the Osmo Action because it has the gimbal. But one of the problems you're going to run into, and I hope we're not having it right now, is it in focus? Because I know that the Osmo Action is going to be in focus because everything is in focus with the Osmo Action. The Osmo Pocket, I have no idea. I can see that I'm in frame on the screen, but I don't actually know. The screen's not good enough, and it's driving me crazy how much it's moving around right there. But the screen's not good enough for me to tell if it's actually in focus or not. It's just too small of a screen. Whereas you don't have to worry about it because everything's in focus, but they both have front-facing screens. So this is the audio coming out of the Osmo Action. Audio test 1, 2, 3. Audio test 1, 2, 3. And this is the audio coming out of the Osmo Pocket. Audio test 1, 2, 3. Audio test 1, 2, 3. We are currently like right between thunderstorms, and I think it's coming in again, so we'll see you back inside. Now it's time to delve into what I consider to be the most important aspect a camera can bring to the table, period. Especially if you're an online content creator. And that's ease of use. When it comes to ease of use, on these two cameras, I don't think it's even close. The Osmo Pocket, when it first came out, was really interesting because it had a front-facing touchscreen that would let you change up its settings while you were in front of it, which is still really awesome. I mean, I can't take that away from the Osmo Pocket itself. I mean, you can do all of it from the screen itself. But it's not the only camera with this feature anymore. The Osmo Action also has a front-facing screen. I mean, it's not a touchscreen and can't change settings, but with as small as the camera as this is, you can pretty easily turn it around, tap, 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 boop, 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 and be back. And it still has the front screen, so you can then check those settings. I also prefer the user interface on the Action over the interface of the Osmo Pocket. Where the Pocket really gets easier is if you plug it into your phone, that will unlock its full potential and it makes it very easy to use. I never do this, however, because I bought these cameras to be this small. Like, I want them to be pocketable and really small and not take up very much space. So hooking up my cell phone to this really kind of screws up that aesthetic, right? I mean, then it's a big camera and not a small camera, and then I might as well bring a big camera. One negative about that front-facing screen on the Osmo Action, however, is while recording with rock-steady stabilization on, there is a very significant delay between reality and what the screen is showing. Now, that could be a big deal if you're trying to record something specific and you need to keep up even if the screen isn't showing you what's happening in real time. So if you need real time, like the screen has to show you real time, you're not gonna get that while you're recording with the Osmo Action. Overall though, the Action for me way wins in the ease of use. But what's more important is how easy are the cameras to use after you record, because fiddling with cameras, that's literally the worst. These aren't the most complicated cameras, so fiddliness will go pretty quick today. The Osmo Pocket does do a pretty good job when set to selfie mode of doing face tracking and keeping you in frame even when the rest of the camera is moving around. Be careful though, that face tracking does not equate to what's actually in focus though, so don't fall into that trap like some of us. Some of us may have thought that the face tracking meant that it was in focus. It doesn't. Plus, with this teeny little screen, you'll never actually be able to judge what is in focus or not. Now, that's not me trying to crap on the screen, because again, I like front-facing screens. It's just a statement of fact. It's too small to judge focus on. While the screen on the Osmo Action isn't much bigger, you don't actually need to worry about focus because like we mentioned in the beginning, it has infinity focus. And everything then is just in focus. So all you need to focus on, pun intended, is exposure and framing. Yeah, I mean, I much prefer the Osmo Action. Like I said, the biggest thing I dislike about the Pocket is that depth of field. It should have never had that in the first step, and it is the biggest misstep that DJI made with the Osmo Pocket. Like, legitimately, it's bad. So let's say you've watched my video, you're totally convinced by me, and you've purchased one of these cameras. What kind of accessories or ecosystem are you buying into? Both do have a range of accessories from extra cases to audio adapters to mounts to ND filters, etc. I mean, DJI is making very similar offerings for both. The Action though, due to its shape and being an action camera, can fall in on a set of action gear like gimbals, even though it doesn't need to, and basically every GoPro accessory ever made. So I like, again, the ecosystem for this. I mean, the reason I don't like waiting on accessories from DJI is who knows when any of them will ever be released. I mean, they do a great job of talking them up, but a poor job of like actually releasing them on time. But at the end of the day, so what, right? Which of these cameras works best for the traveling self-filmmaker or online content creator? Now, I don't think it's even close, and I hope that I've gotten that across today. I think the Osmo Action crushes the Osmo Pocket as a travel camera, which makes me kind of irritated because I just bought a whole bunch of accessories for the Pocket to turn it into like my minimalist travel gear. You've probably seen that video, because I much prefer the Action. It fixes every single big problem that the Pocket had. It has a wider field of view, infinity focus, removable batteries. Don't forget, this does not have a removable battery. Big fail. And I'm not concerned about a mechanical gimbal when I throw it in my camera bag. I'm always concerned that when I put my accessories on and it doesn't just fit in the case that it came with, that this will break. But I don't worry about this. I mean, it's the far, far superior camera, and I don't really see a reason to buy the Pocket anymore unless you absolutely need that gimbal to do some of those movements for you. But which one do you prefer? Leave a comment below and let's get that conversation started. Thanks for watching.